Good afternoon, YouTube. Let me just make sure I'm live on here, my phone for a second. Okay, yes, I seem good. All right, hello, my name is Greg. I'm from GregsTutoringNYC at gmail.com. I have a tutoring company and I've been tutoring for a few decades. This is really quick live stream pertaining to the high school directories. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the New York City normal high school directory. Now, in previous years, this was a big, gigantic book. I think last year's was 630 pages. This year is 124. What they've done is, let me just show you maybe a page. I have a delay here, so I'm not actually watching this. Actually, you know what? I can do this. This might be better, yes. So if you notice, how can I get this right? I can't see the screen at the same time. There's really not a lot of details about each school here. So previously, you had to go and have this giant book and look through all the directory like that. So what they're doing is they're really just putting a few information details, not a lot. They claim they did some statistics and found out that that's just what families wanted. I personally wouldn't want this. But it basically says the name of the school, its code, what programs it offers, its address, and what the graduation rate is. And what you have to do is, it's now online. I'll give you guys a link for that. Give me 1 second. I'll cut and paste it. Is that the My Schools? A lot of you now know about myschools.nyc. So what you're going to do is go to myschools.nyc/schools, and depending on what language you have, it'll bring something up. In fact, let me show you guys what that is. Once you go there, you're going to get a screen like that. Okay, when you go to myschools.nyc, it's the schools, and then you can click on say high schools. I think this situation they have here needs to be enhanced by a lot of things. Anyway, there's a bunch of filters. You can also sort it by different sports, by the size of the school, and which train lines and stuff to take to it. There's more there too. So at least it does something. You also see the map on the side, which has that. So we have things like that. Okay. So that's pertaining to just regular high schools. So a good thing about the previous version of this, so this says 2020. All previous versions of it, the nice thing about it was all in one place. And if you didn't have an internet connection, or you don't have a computer at your house or whatever, you could always have this guide that was given to each student. It was actually called the High School Directory. Now it's just called an admissions guide. So it's technically no longer a directory. So families who need more details and they don't have a computer, they might have a problem. You can always go to the library, go to a welcome center. You could do some of this on your phone, although it gets tedious at that level. Also on a tablet. Okay, so that's the trade-off now. So that if the internet goes down or something too, you can't use it as well. The Department of Education can make live changes, and that can go both ways. There were some errors in previous versions of things like this document, and they can do it live, and there could be clarifications and stuff like that. On the same note, they could add mistakes, so be very, very careful no matter what you're seeing, whether it was on the paper version in the past or online now, because they could add an error, and then you could also read a page and then think it's that and not go back to it. So it might be handy to print out as you're going through the high schools and selecting them. I'm not saying to print out 630 pages again, but as you're narrowing it down to maybe 10 or so, print those out and then make sure that they don't change by the time it comes to be the time where you submit your applications. The second thing is the 2020 SHSAT Handbook is now available. Okay, I only just got this a few minutes ago. Okay, I believe this can stop being handed out. I don't know if this I believe was handed out to a lot of schools already. This, as far as I know, was not handed out to anybody yet. So just be aware of that. But it's here. It's real. This is not a preview copy. This is not a draft copy. This is the actual SHSAT handbook for the next year. The test is going to be normally at the end of October, beginning of November. Depends exactly how they do that. As some of you may know, there's some litigation and some debates going on about how to handle the specialized high schools in terms of inequities and some racial issues and so on. In any event, that's the SHSAT handbook. I looked through some of the beginning of it. The structure seems to be exactly the same as the very last year's one. So there were some modifications made in 2017, 2018. It seems to be the last changes are sticking there. The same number of questions, the same time length for the test, the same with 5 gridding questions for the math. There's going to be a revising and editing part in the English. There's going to be reading comprehension, and then there's going to be a whole bunch of multiple choice questions. There's going to be 57 questions in the English part, 57 questions in the math part. 47 of those count. 10 are field questions and are part of the test. The range is still the same. You're still going to get from 1 to 47 then as your thing. The way it's graded is still going to be the same. Okay. So what we're probably going to do is do another stream about the actual questions. Please subscribe to my channel. I have a whole ton of stuff posted already about some general things. You know, what happens on test day, how to prepare for the SHSAT. All that's already there already. It's not going to change. I also have some actual things where I go through grade 7, grade 8 material, English and math, how to do poetry, how to go through the ELA section. I've gone through a whole bunch of full tests for 7th and 8th grade. I also gone through a few whole sample SHSAT tests. Okay. So with that in mind, let me see if anybody's on the live stream, just to make sure nobody's asking questions. Again, I'm Greg at GregsTutoringNYC at gmail.com. I tutor for a lot of tests. The Hunter test, by the way, is going to be coming up very soon again. Right now it's closed. You can't apply for it yet. I also tutor for the Hunter test, which is its own beast. Both of these tests are very unique tests with their own issues and concerns. I tutor for both. I also tutor for other things. You can look at the description below of some of the stuff I do. Again, I'm Greg. I'm at GregsTutoringNYC at gmail.com. If you guys have questions, of course, if you want me to tutor, I'm always available. In fact, I just ended all the New York State test tutoring. I have a few kids I do homework help and stuff with. So that's still going on. I have a couple kids I'm doing readings with as well. So now is the time to start gearing up into your specialized high school considerations. Look at both of these things. Go on to the My Schools/schools and start getting an idea what high schools you want to go to. You kind of really should have done a lot of that already. So you're starting to hone in more and more. You don't want this to be a card game that you're winning. You want this to be something strategic that you figure out. A lot of kids just wing the SHSAT, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then they're upset that they didn't get into a specialized high school. You can't kind of do it that way. There's a couple of issues here. One is that there's the Common Core grade 7 curriculum, which is supposed to be what the SHSAT is based on. And I say supposed to be because that's what the Department of Education is saying lately, although it was never true. These are supposed to be tutoring kids who are very creative, testing kids who are very creative, out of the box, accelerated, like to tinker with stuff, just they like to be challenged intellectually, mathematically, with advanced literature, advanced math, out of the box questions involving critical thinking. So the SHSAT is testing something else that the New York State test tests. So there's a couple of things of problems, which is that first of all there's the curriculum that kids are being given each year. The state test never reflects that curriculum. I've been tutoring kids for decades now. The state test has never ever once reflected that curriculum, which is sad. So we have a test that's supposed to be measuring what the children are learning in the classroom, and there's kind of a 90-degree thing. It's called being orthogonal. They're going off in different places. Now that said, there's commonality. So grade 7 math is still grade 7 math, and so on. So I'm not saying it's completely different, but there is a point where it's not aligned perfectly. Okay, certainly in the implementation part. And then on top of that, there's the SHSAT, which is trying to find kids who are going to do well with the rigor of the specialized high school. Okay, and that said, every kid doesn't have to go to a specialized high school. New York City has 400 high schools with 700 programs. So there's only 8 specialized high schools. Actually, there's 9, but one's LaGuardia, which is auditions for performing arts, music, and art. So that's on its own situation. You go for auditions there. There's 8 other schools, but that leaves 393 other schools. Okay, and on top of that, there's programs. You technically apply to a program. You don't actually apply to a high school. So there's things like that. Okay, so that you can go like Forest Hills High School in Queens offers different programs. So one kid might go to Forest Hills High School for science, and another kid might be going to Forest Hills High School for more artistic things. So it depends what programs are within each school. They might both need to do English and math and science and take gym and stuff like that. But then for the electives, they're going to take the parts where they have interest, right? A lot of schools are themed now. We used to have just general purpose high schools that you just go to your local high school. That's no longer the case anymore. So with all that in mind, these specialized high schools, there's only 8 of them. They're very good, but there's also other schools that are very good. Townsend Harris, Beacon, Eleanor Roosevelt. I could go on. Midwood in Brooklyn. There's dozens of good schools. So, but if you're going to try for a specialized high school, you just can't. And if you're going to apply for any of these schools, you just can't wing it. Some of them are screened, asking for you to see your state scores and your grades from your class. Even stuff like attendance matters. So with the specialized high school, the only thing that matters is your score on this specialized high school test called the SHSAT, SHSAT. Okay? So if that's something that you're inclined to think you're going to like, research it, find out if it's really for you. I'm talking to kids right now, but your parents too. Don't force your children to go to these schools. They have to be the kind of person who needs to go to that school. I went to Brooklyn Tech, so did my daughter. I have a twin sister. She didn't go to Brooklyn Tech. She didn't go to specialized high school. She was not scientifically or mathematically oriented, for instance. At the time when I went, there was only 3 schools: Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, and Tech. She liked other things. So why would she go to the school that I wanted to go to? But for somebody like me, Brooklyn Tech was an excellent, excellent school. I loved it. I would go again in a heartbeat with snap of a finger. Okay, it's not for everybody. So figure out if it's for you. If it's for you, figure out how to get into it. When I went, you just mainly went and took the test based on your classroom performance. And by the way, the test was different back then. It's been modified a few times, especially recently. But you went and just took it. Nowadays, with standardized testing everywhere, it's gotten carried away. So most people are doing test prep, and most people are doing tutoring at different levels. So there's things like that you need to consider. So I'm not saying the test wasn't challenging. In fact, the test itself was probably more challenging when I took it to get into Brooklyn Tech. But when my daughter took it, it had been modified already, I believe. And a lot of people were prepping. Now, she didn't prep to the extent that she had a tutor and so on. I mean, she had me, first of all, but she did other things. So there's always possibilities. Don't close doors on yourself. But, if you want this, you need to make an effort into it. At least this is my opinion. And just go for it. So again, we have the two new books. How can I get these on the screen at the same time? and I'll end the stream that way. Let's see, I can do this. Again, if you guys have questions, I'm already tutoring kids on this. I don't need up-to-date information. I have tons of material to tutor people on this. So how can I do this? Alright, I'm just going to exit this at this point.